things are starting to make sense. Now we understand why the NDP have been so eager to prop up the Liberals and their unethical behavior. It's because they have been cooking up a secret backroom deal. My question to the leader of the new NDP Liberal Party is this. When did he start these secret talks with his new Deputy Prime Minister, the member for Burnaby South? Was it before, during, or just after the last election?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What this agreement means is in this time of uncertainty and pressures on Canadians, we're going to have predictability and an ability to focus on delivering the things that Canadians asked us all for collectively in the last election. More investments in housing, better support for families, help with the cost of living, growth for Canadians, the fight against climate change increased, and support on reconciliation. The toxicity and polarization that we'd seen in Parliament of the past is now an opportunity for us to deliver for Canadians, and that's what we shall do.
Interim Conservative Party leader Candice Bergen taking on the Prime Minister during question period today, saying Canadians did not vote for an NDP government and accusing the NDP and Liberals of backdoor dealings. This after the two parties struck a blockbuster deal that would keep Justin Trudeau's Liberal minority in power until 2025. The NDP and Liberal Party leaders say this would provide stability to Canadians. This includes action on dental care, climate change, housing, and paid sick leave. For analysis, we welcome to CP24 Tonight Muhammad Ali, Liberal strategist and senior consultant at Crestview Strategy, Kim Wright, NDP strategist and principal at Wright Strategies, and John Capobianco, conservative strategist and senior VP and partner at Fleischman Hillard High Road. Thanks to all of you. Mohammed, let's start with you. Talk about the timing of this deal. Why now? I mean, Trudeau, they're talking about this sense of uncertainty right now. Could we really have seen another election before 2025?
Look, it's a minority parliament, so an election could take place at any given moment if government loses confidence of the House. Now, I think there's a number of factors at play here. I know the word unprecedented has been probably overused over the last 2 years, but this is an unprecedented time. There is significant geopolitical instability given the Russian invasion of Ukraine, high inflation, the pandemic's ongoing, we have supply chain concerns. There is far too much going on. And I think this was a strategic decision amongst both parties, but particularly for the Liberals and the government, to create an opportunity that establishes continuity and certainty over the next budgets, the next three budgets, and that establishes kind of continuity for them to get through their election platforms, achieve some of their critical policy objectives on climate change, digital reconciliation, and housing. And a lot of what was already agreed upon was stuff that was in the platform. Aside from dental care, there was largely all the same. So this is a big win for the Liberal government to achieve continuity and stability over the next 4 years for them.
A big win for the Liberal government. Kim, a lot of people saying Trudeau, the bigger winner here. Your thoughts on that?
Look, I think Canadians can be and should be seeing themselves as the bigger winner here. They have set back-to-back minority governments, expecting politicians to get over their own egos, stop playing temper tantrum politics, and actually get to work for what matters to Canadians. And over 50% of Canadians voted for either the Liberals or the New Democrats. You know, this line that Canadians didn't vote for an NDP government, I'll tell you, I certainly did. And this is what I expected. I expect movement, tangible movement on dental care, not just more promises, but actual movement on this, movement on pharmacare, movement on affordable housing. Anybody who has tried to rent an apartment anywhere in this country, let alone here in Toronto, and tried to find it at an affordable rate, has been woefully disappointed. The precarious housing situation that we have with our homeless populations, the need for wraparound services for various vulnerable communities, including all of our mental health coming out of the pandemic. These are key issues that Canadians have been looking for movement on. And we also saw in this deal an enshrinement of the childcare deals. Here in Ontario, we still don't have a childcare deal struck with the federal government, even though every other province and territory seems to. But what it will do is make sure that these were not only promises and ribbon cuttings, but actually moved into actual movement where people can actually access the service, and not just when the whim of a political party feels like it. People sent the New Democrats to work to make Parliament work. What they did today isn't unprecedented. Tommy Douglas did this to get us Medicare. Jack Layton did it to get us affordable housing, and Jagmeet Singh did it to get us a whole heck of a lot of things today.
Well, we can't deny some of these policies are going to be expensive. How do you respond, Kim, to some of the concerns about cost?
So that's an easy one. The reality is governing is choosing. And when you look at the budgets of the federal government, there is a lot of money within the system that can be allocated or properly allocated to make sure that these priorities are paid for. But even if we look at dental care, first of all, many people who have gotten to severe dental problems end up in the ER, which is exponentially more costly to the entirety of the healthcare system. So if we can start to get at these issues earlier, it means more money in the pocket of Canadians. Also, people having better access to overall healthcare services, because as we know, the mouth is the starting place for so many health problems. So if we just look at that, there's a lot of savings that can be done by putting these allocations into the right place. As an old boss of mine says, put your emphasis in the right place. But what we're looking at is what matters to Canadians here, and that's what we look through in the billions and billions and billions of dollars that the federal government spends each year. If we can't find it for healthcare, we've got bigger problems.
All right, John, a fiery question period today following this announcement. Conservatives blindsided and really upset.
Well, I think Canadians were blindsided. I think Candice Bergen, the interim leader, said it right when he said that the Liberals and the NDP cooked up the secret deal behind closed doors, and there was an expectation, obviously, given the fact that the NDP have been supporting the Liberals not only during this parliamentary session, but for the last number of parliamentary sessions. And look, I think at the end of the day, none of the policy issues that both Kim and Mohammed talked about this deal, being something of a revelation that these are going to happen, they were going to happen regardless. Now, notwithstanding the fact that pharmacare and dentacare weren't mentioned in the Liberals' platform this time around, but the Liberals have mentioned both pharmacare and dentacare in some ways. The NDP have always espoused it, but this is something that is purely a power grab for the Liberals. And look, no one believed that there was going to be an election this year or next year or even potentially the year after. The NDP were more than happy to support the Liberals over the course of the last little while. They did with the Emergency Act, and they were going to do it again in the next budget. So at the end of the day, this is a big win for the Liberals, and the Canadians will lose because it's now spending will go through the roof. And when we were supposed to be talking about economic recovery post-pandemic, that's not going to happen now. So a lot of these issues and a lot of the things that we've just seen with this deal that has happened is going to make the Liberals now sort of secure for the next 3 or 4 years. And I think it's going to be a significant, it's a short-term gain for Jagmeet Singh for sure. He's going to get the press and all that for the next week or two. But long term, I think it's going to hurt Jagmeet Singh, because at the end of the day, the Liberals are going to be the ones that are going to be putting forward all these legislations and the policies, and Canadians will be remembering them in the next election, not the NDP, the fact that the NDP propped them up.
Okay, Kim, why don't you respond to that? I mean, where does this leave the NDP? Do you share that concern this may, sort of position the Conservatives as a more clear alternative to the Liberals?
No, Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats actually, as part of this deal, have an oversight agreement, which means that they're actually going to, shockingly, talk to the government, making sure that the issues that matter to Canadians are part of this conversation. They're going to have many conversations about what comes forward in legislation. Frankly, it is what should happen in a minority parliament, that the government should talk to the opposition parties. And if the Conservatives want to talk about how many times they've propped up the Liberal government, including voting against pharmacare and dental care, there are 600 times in the last parliament and this parliament that they've supported the Liberal government. So, when we talk about these things, what Jagmeet Singh and the New Democrats have focused on are getting deals that matter to Canadians, not playing brinksmanship politics and temper tantrum politics, as the Conservative Party has done. And look, I like a good band name as much as anybody else, but Candice Bergen calling this backdoor socialism is kind of ridiculous.
So, Mohammed, what does all this say about where the Liberal Party is right now? Is it moving more left? And is there a risk that this could further politicize the country and polarize people in the country?
You know what? I think we've all of my fellow panelists have all knocked on doors, and the number one message always is, can government get something done? Is your party going to get something done? And I'm tired of waiting. It takes forever. Well, this is an agreement that helps get things done, regardless of whether the NDP may or may not have supported the Liberals over the next 4 budgets and over the entire mandate. Minority parliaments only last normally 18 to 24 months, so it's not like there's a lot of time to get through things. And this government has committed on some ambitious targets, and this agreement ensures that also represents with 2 parties that got over 50% of the popular vote in the country. They are representing Canadians for what they want. I mean, the Liberals ran a platform and won, and they're enacting their platform. So there is not some sort of backroom socialism deal that the Conservatives are going to accuse the deal to be. It's strictly Parliament working. And Canadians want Parliament to work, get things done, get us out of this pandemic, get us an economic recovery, and address the situations that are impacting Canadians every day. That's going to be done in this upcoming budget, and that'll be done over the next 4 years on key issues that matter to Canadians on their pocketbooks, and just being able to afford a house or get medication.
On a local level, we are just months away from an election here in Ontario. John, could this deal help Doug Ford?
Well, I think it does help Doug Ford. I think that there's always been the issue of whatever the federal political situation was, that it'd be the opposite in Ontario. So in other words, if there was a federal Liberal government in Ottawa, there'd be a provincial Conservative government here in Ontario. So now the fact that the Liberals and the NDP have teamed up to be the center-left government now in Ottawa, I think does help the Premier, because I think Ontarians will want to see some sort of a balance, because they're going to see the federal government and the Liberal NDP government in Ottawa spending through the roof. So there's going to have to be some check and balance, and having a Conservative government in Ontario will probably be that check and balance. So I think it helps the Premier. It's never a set in stone with respect to this kind of thing, but you could imagine that the province, especially over the course of the next little while, are going to need to work with the federal government, and having the federal government being the Liberals and the NDP in Ottawa might very well help the Premier.
We'll have to see how this plays out. Thanks so much for your time and your perspective tonight. Muhammad Ali, Kim Wright, and John Capobianco, thanks so much.